Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. We are going to talk about song leading. And so, there's several things to think about with this. When we think about song leading in general and what that looks like, a lot of times we do focus, song leading tends to be one of the things that we really get focused on the physical aspect of it. I think that's one thing that we just have a really strong tendency towards. And we almost we want our song leader to be someone who was really good at singing and has really good musical awareness and all of that. And this is just like any other aspect of worship. This is worship to our Almighty God. And the thing that we're focused on is how we're leading the minds of people in singing. Now, I don't know about you, but I know throughout the years I've had a problem of, while just singing, to get so focused on how it sounds, like the melody, and just get so caught up on that. That could be a tendency for song leading as well. And that could sort of change the way we look at this, because if we're so focused on how things sound, that will affect our song choices, and that's going to affect the way that we present this to the group as well. Kind of jumping right into this if you haven't noticed, but there's a lot of things to consider along these lines. I have 4 passages here, scriptures to keep in mind. We're not going to go through all of this, but I would strongly suggest before the next time that you lead singing, read through and think about these. And maybe I'll mention a couple things about each one, just so you could write a note of what to look for. But things like Revelation chapters 4 and 5, we have this picture of God on his throne. And you have this picture of what worship looks like in heaven. And you have the elders that are throwing their crowns down at the throne. You have the great throne scene. And you have the angels, those who keep calling out, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty." And you have examples of they sing a new song to the Lord. And then in chapter 5, you have this whole discussion about Jesus, the slaughtered lamb who is worthy to open up the seals. And if you don't understand all that, read it. It's really cool. But that concept of who we are worshiping, that's awesome. That's God. When we lead singing, we are worship leader. As any of these topics, you are leading the worship of people. Our worship here should reflect what's happened, as Michael said. It's the tabernacle type thing. It reflects what heaven looks like, of what it is in heaven. And so when we are leading, our job is to get everybody in that frame of mind so that we are worshiping God in the way that he wants to be worshiped, in the way that he deserves. So if we are doing anything less, we're not doing it right. The Hebrews passage, Hebrews 13:15, talks about, in general, it's the things that we do. It's offer a sacrifice of praise to God, the fruit of lips that give thanks to his name. I don't think that we think about singing and the things that we say and using our voices in that way, but it is a sacrifice. Like worship that we bring to God is a sacrifice. And as 2 Samuel 24 says, David mentioned, I'm not going to sacrifice anything that doesn't cost me something. Sacrifice is something that costs us something. Worship should cost us something. It should be something that really we're giving it all we have, and we're approaching God and doing our absolute dead level best. Because Malachi 1, you know what God said about the sort of the useless worship there? Is like, I wish somebody would just close the temple doors, because this is what's happening here. It's worship, quote unquote, but it's not real worship. It would be much better if you just didn't worship at all if you're going to offer this to me, because it is completely useless. And so the things, when we have all that in mind, singing is about talking to each other, psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, singing, making melody in our hearts to the Lord. It's using our words to encourage others. So we're worshiping the Lord, and we're helping each other and being a source of encouragement there as well. We are so focused on the message of the songs that we're singing. We need to know what we're singing and why we're singing those songs. So all of that goes. I'm front loading all of this so that way we could sort of take some of those lessons all the way throughout here, because I do have a lot of just practical bullet points here. You should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And keep in mind, here's a little disclaimer, I'm not an expert, so the things that I say, everybody can do things in a different way. But here's just some things that you might want to consider and think about. So let's at least start with that. I think that would be cool. So again, we're worship leaders. We're leading the hearts and minds of people in worship. We don't want it to be worthless. We don't want it to be useless. We want it to be a benefit to what we're doing and ultimately to glorify and honor God. And that's what we do. And this starts with our preparation. We prepare beforehand, as everyone else will say. And that starts with, really, as we've talked about, knowing when you're scheduled, so take care of that. But choosing songs that are appropriate for the occasion. You're going to get something in some form. If it's a Sunday morning, Sunday night, somebody's going to be preaching, probably Kyle, maybe somebody else. And you're going to get some ideas, thoughts about what the lesson is going to be about. It is a pretty good idea to try to pick out songs that go along with that topic. Now, some topics are harder to pick out songs for than others, for sure. If Kyle or someone says, "I want to be preaching about the grace of God," okay, I can handle that. Or the love of God, perfect. There's a topical index in the back of your songbook, and it has those topics listed, and you can find it. Some things are a little bit harder to try to figure out. How do I get songs about that? If you have problems with that, one, you can ask the person who is preaching, what do you mean by that? What's some things that could go along with that? Or try to pick something like an attribute of God that we're honoring in that lesson. Or just in general, I think it's good sometimes just the first song that we sing to get us in proper mindset of worship. Let's sing about how awesome God is or how great He is. And some of those things, just really praise and honor God so we can come to God in the right set of mind and the right mind frame. There's also Lord's Supper and invitation songs. With those, I think we all know pretty well what those should be geared towards. We have a specific thing in mind that we're preparing for. So your Lord's Supper songs tend to lead your mind to Jesus, to His sacrifice, and we're going to see that a lot. So make sure to coordinate that. And the invitation song. Now, to be an invitation song, it doesn't have to be listed in the invitation song portion of the topical index. It can be something else, but just make sure it's aligned with those thoughts in mind, trying to get us to think about our response, the response that we have to the message that's given. So there we go. And if there's ever any doubt of what you need to do, we have monthly themes here. We have yearly themes. So pick something along those things, and that would work too. Now, when it comes to you are actually picking out songs, because you want to do that beforehand for a lot of reasons, but when you are looking at the songs you're wanting to sing, a few things to consider there. It's good to try and have a variety of styles, if possible, variety of tempos, if that's appropriate. And a variety, because some songs just really kind of sound similar, and if you sing all songs the same, it might kind of hinder some of the worship there. So just make sure you're keeping that in mind as well. You're going to read through the verses of the song, and I read through every single verse, even if you've sung it 10,000 times. I don't care. Read through every single verse. Read all the words. Read the chorus. Think about what those words mean. Think about the importance. Does this match the theme that I'm going for? Is this appropriate? And you are going to choose, sometimes it is appropriate to change the order of some things, maybe leave a certain verse out because I really want to focus on this subject, or maybe it's more impactful if we sing all the verses and then the chorus at the end, or maybe just a couple verses in the chorus. You can alter that as you wish. But just make sure you're thinking through what you are trying to accomplish with this song. And obviously make a note of any kind of special things, because you'll have to there's going to be some things when you actually lead the song that you do with that as well. When in doubt, though, sing everything. The authors of those songs put together some pretty good thoughts, and so in general, I think your default should be, let's sing all the verses, we're not trying to save time or anything. We want to fully encapsulate these things. Okay, so we got that. I'm gonna stop myself right there. As we go through this, as the others said, I'll comments, questions, anything. We'll have a question answer at the end as well. If there's something you just want to jot down, make a note, and we can talk about it at the end and work through some of that. That'd be awesome as well. So just let me know as far as that goes. We have a PowerPoint, if you haven't noticed, and Tara Ray's usually the one who puts that together. So if you have not led singing before, she's probably going to get in touch with you to say, hey, what's your song selection, so I can get that together. Please, just for her sake and for her sanity, try to get that in, for Michael's insanity, get that in before, 24 hours in advance, like that. That would be a really cool thing, a day in advance. I know sometimes Wednesday night, that's like the hard time to get that together for some reason. But did you know that you can tell if you are scheduled to lead singing on Wednesday night before Wednesday, like you can? So that's another thing, to be prepared and to realize you have that and put some thought into that before, and hey, Tuesday evening, there you go. Try to get that to her. And now, when you communicate with Tara and you have your order of things, try to make sure that the version of the song that you intend to lead is the version that she knows and that we have in the program, whatever, because sometimes there can be issues with that, and we might have a different version than what we actually think we have. I know some songs have the same exact name, and I've sent a list to her before, and she's been like, okay, this song, which one? I'm like, there's more than one? And I'm like, well, the good version. Well, her idea of the good version was the other one, and the one that I didn't know. So it's just make sure you have the right versions of those. And any kind of special ingredients, things that if you want certain amount of verses, choruses, if there's certain parts of it, whatever, send those instructions to her. Especially get those way in advance. Don't make her life miserable. It's good for you to take that. Obviously, you're going to make notes of what songs you choose. There's also going to be some other things that I think would be helpful to write down when you're preparing to lead singing, not just a song number and song title. There's going to be some other things, and we're going to look at that a little bit in a minute as well. But there's definitely write down what you have. And before you get there, practice. Practice leading the songs. And when you look at a song, I want you to think, do I know what this song sounds like? Do I know how to find the first note? And maybe some of you, and I won't get into like music theory or anything like that a lot, but if some of you know how to find, like the solfege, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, like some of you know that. Some of you don't. And that's okay. You don't have to know that to be a good song leader. You just have to know about, okay, where, relatively speaking, do I need to start kind of low, start kind of high, and practice that so you know sort of where to go with that. And am I going to be doing hand motions? Hand motions, those, you know what I mean. That's not everybody does that, and you don't have to. But if you choose to do that, do you know how that works with the song? Or are you going to get confused? You want to do things that are helpful for the group, but that won't be a distraction. And you don't want it to be a distraction to you either when you're leading. And so you want to make sure that you're comfortable with what's going on. If you want to learn how to do hand motions and learning how to find starting notes and do, mi, so, and all that, you can learn. YouTube's a good resource. Ask somebody else who seems like they know what they're doing. And I mean, you can do that. But hand motions don't have to be fancy. Just something that gives like a strong indication of where the tempo is. Some people do the tomahawk, and that's fine. Like that gives a clear, here is the beat, and that's fine. Some people do the whole like in 4/4 time. They go down, in, out, up. Like that's cool too. 3/4, like what is it? Down, out, up, middle. Like that's or 2/4. But what you don't want to do with hand motions, and this is just a little technique for you, you don't want it to be something that looks like this. Where's the beat? This isn't going to help. Like that's you're doing hand motions, but you're not helping. You need to have some kind of clear, distinct pattern. So that's something, and it's not something you have to do, but it's something that could be helpful. All right. Any questions on preparation? Anything that you want to mention?
Going back to the point you made earlier, Hebrews 13 and 2 Samuel 24, this is a sacrifice. So I agree with what you're saying, that hand motions and being able to find the key of the song and the starting pitch, and it's not necessary. But also, when David thought about making a sacrifice to God, he said, it is going to cost me something. And so if it costs us a little bit of embarrassment the first time we try to do it and we fall flat on our face and we get the pitch wrong, we should never approach it going, listen, this is just what I'm going to offer and you need to accept it.
It's true.
We should approach it going, this is going before the God who is sitting on the throne, worship in heaven. Jesus alone is worthy, so we're not going to arrive to that level. So let's do our best, but let's make sure it really is our best.
That's a really good point. Are there things we can do to stretch ourselves to make us better song leaders? And not for the sake of appearing like we look like a good song leader, word, sound, whatever. No, it's so that we can more effectively lead the minds in worship. Now, some of these things, it might sound a little, it's like, well, what do hand motions matter? You know, what does it matter if I know what pitch I'm starting on? What isn't just we're singing to the Lord, and that's true. But are we hindering or are we helping? And sometimes I think if we could be more of a help, I guess I could say musically and with the tempo, and if that's sort of just programmed in there, and we're better at that, and we've practiced that more, then we can help the minds of the people who are worshiping, including ourselves, to be focused on what we are really supposed to be focused on. The message of the song, what's going on, how we're offering that praise. So that's some good stuff there. Anything else on the preparation side? When you get to the building, definitely be early for this. You need to double check the PowerPoint because sometimes things happen. A verse gets left out. There's extra stuff, or maybe you really think you know that this is what that version is, but it's not. I've had a song, and it was sort of my fault for introducing a new song. We'll get to new stuff later. Don't worry. I'll give some thoughts on that. But it was a new song, and I thought I knew what the new song was supposed to be. And then there was like this whole added section that I had no idea what it was. Thankfully, I caught that beforehand and was able to trim that out. Sometimes you get some things that are unexpected, so just double check that just to make sure what you think is going to be up there is up there, because again, we don't want to be a hindrance to anybody's worship. We don't want to distract people, and those are the types of things that if we could put in a little time beforehand, it can help go smoother, so that way we're focused on the Lord instead. So we do that. The thing about putting the numbers on the board, there have been some people who, there are people who still use the books. Almost, there's a few that I've talked to anyway who have mentioned that they really prefer to still have the numbers up there. I don't know that that's expectation every time you must do that, but I think it could be helpful. And for those who use the books, and maybe some of the younger ones do too, but I know of at least a few who do that. And if you do, the numbers are below this table here. They're in numerical order, And you take the numbers, you put them in order on this board, and just to recap, left-hand side, that's supplement, so the spiral-bound supplemental notebook thing. There you go. The middle is the big regular book. Whatever, I don't remember what the book's name is, but that book, the one that we use. Hymns for Worship. So it's that one, the regular book. And the right side is reserved, usually if it's a new song or something that's only on the PowerPoint, not in any of the books, usually just put a 0 on the right-hand side, just as a placeholder to show, hey, there's a song here, but it's not in your book. So there you go.
Jason, on that point,
yeah.
So that's helpful. But there are people that don't use the PowerPoint because they can't see it in the back, and it's about 10 times bigger than that.
That is a good point. That's true.
Something that sometimes happens is we, and I would be all for just taking the songbooks completely out of the pews because I don't have use for it, but not everybody's like me. So we get up here and we sing the song before the sermon, and then we sit down because we don't need to announce the invitation. Nobody's going to turn to it. It's going to be on the board. And so now people that can't see that, or maybe the numbers aren't up there, they don't know the title, and they don't know the number. And so when the invitation starts, they're trying to do some quick math to figure out where this is. And so that might be something that's helpful as well.
That's true. Announcing, especially invitation beforehand.
Or the PowerPoint could go out. You need to have books here too.
Yeah, that's true. As a teacher in the classroom, that's a thing that they tell us all the time, that do technology. But then sometimes it goes out, and what do? Well, you got to be prepared. And so if we already have that, yeah, and there might be some, like, what if we're doing a song that is new, that's only on the PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint goes out? Well, we're going to have to find something else, and that's okay. But at least we have an order, and we can keep things going, and it's not as an awkward, frantic rush to try and figure out what to do. Mm-hmm. That's true. And we are blessed with what we have here, so thank you, Casey. When you are, and okay, I'll say it now. How about that? Some people in this congregation might not be able to see at all. And if someone is blind, perchance, and you just get up and you start singing, some people are there, but it takes a little bit to prepare, and so definitely be announcing the number, but the name also. It's really helpful to announce the name and invitation especially. Announce that before you get down and before everything else takes place. So, some thoughts there. The sitting on the front row thing, I think, is very helpful, especially as a song leader. You are going to be one of the first up. So sit on the front row. That would be a good place for you to be at the beginning of services. And you can go back and sit wherever during the sermon, during the lesson, that sort of thing. But there's a time where the preacher gets to the invitation part of the lesson. You can kind of tell when that's happening. Go ahead and move up. It's not super distracting to just move up and sit on the front row. So you're ready to get up there and continue. We don't want lull, especially in that invitation time, because if the invitation is taking root in someone's mind and they're really thinking about it, when you're able to smoothly transition into, okay, here's the song, and they're thinking about that, it helps in that whole situation, that transition. The last thing about arriving at the building and what we do before we do all that is pray. And I know Michael mentioned maybe even getting together with people beforehand. I hadn't thought about that. That's a really cool idea. Maybe we should do some of that. But at least if you are sitting here and you're thinking about the services begin, there's a verse usually that's up here, right? That sort of helps to get you prepared mentally for what's about to happen. But it would be good for you to pray individually. Pray that God prepares your heart in leading other people to worship Him. Just ask Him to help you remember to see Him on His throne, to see that great scene in heaven from Revelation 4. Remember who we are honoring, who we are worshiping. Pray for humility. Pray for reverence, respect. all of those characteristics that help us in leading the things that we need to be doing. Pray for those. That's a good time to remember that, because again, it's not about us. It's not about what we have, but it's about who we're serving. So there you go. Anything else? Anything you guys want to mention about when you get here before your song leading starts? During services. Now, this might help you, some of the stuff we're going to talk about here, might help you in thinking about some of the things you might want to take notes on before. And some of the things you might want to write down and prepare for beforehand. So, one thing about song leading, again, use the mic. People need to hear your introduction to the song and the number and all of that stuff. Make sure you're heard there. And definitely start the song from the mic. Now, while you're singing, you don't have to be the loudest voice in the building the whole time. So it's okay to step back some during the song. If you have a quieter voice, maybe you should. But that's one of the things you'll have to play with a little bit. Nothing wrong with staying up there. So I don't want you to feel like I'm saying I don't want to hear you. But, just keep that in mind. Keep track of the order of services. And I know we have the PowerPoint that sort of tells what's happening, but it's always good to be aware, one, in case the PowerPoint goes down, two, to remember how many songs you have, and maybe include that in some of your notes, like, okay, I do 2 songs here, and then there's a prayer, and then I have a song here. Whatever the order is, it's in the bulletin, so if you ever forget the order of services, you can find it there. And especially if you were ever singing somewhere else, leading singing in another place, and it's not here, they don't have a PowerPoint, make sure you get that before services, just to help with facilitating things. The very first thing that I think is good to do when you first start the song service is to just, in general, say like the theme, like what your songs are going to be focused on that morning or that evening, that time period. Because really, honestly, every one of us who are singing, we can read the words, and as we're singing, we can go through and we can think about some of those things. But I think it helps just to prep, and it helps to prep everybody's mind if we all know where we are going with our songs. Because if we can keep track of, okay, everything I'm singing is going to be revolving around this one thing. And so every word I sing is going to be about this. It can help you worship, I think, in a better way. Because I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but have you ever got to the end of a song and you get done singing it and you're like, I don't remember a single thing from that song. I couldn't tell you like what it was about. And unfortunately, that happens. And so just the better we can prepare people for that, I think is just going to be very, very helpful. Now, when you get to each song, I think it is appropriate and good to have a little small introduction for each song. Name and number, obviously, and even repeat those. Even though we have the PowerPoint, it's okay. It's okay to repeat those. Keep that in mind. I think it's helpful to tell why that song fits in. And you don't have to say a whole lot about each one. But it's good to say, this song, especially, and maybe even think about a part of a verse or part of the song that they're going to get to, and just like, especially when you get to this phrase here, just really think about how that applies. Or one of those types of things. And especially if the song has any phrases, words that we don't use in everyday language. And there are so many examples of that. And you don't have to, if we sang this song 2 weeks ago and somebody mentioned it, you don't have to say it every time, but sometimes people forget what Ebenezer means, or let thy goodness like a fetter. And sometimes you have to think, it's like, what was that? Or things like hoary times, rose of Sharon. Hallelujah sometimes can even be like, wait, what was that? Okay. Hark the herald, Beulah land, bulwark. Why is it the lower lights? Though Satan should buffet, like, and one of the best, night with ebon pinion brooded o'er the veil. Those can be kind of confusing if you're not familiar with that. And keep in mind, we do have visitors. Our worship should not be so visitor friendly that we're doing everything for the visitors, but we want them to be able to understand what's going on as well. And so it's some of those phrases, if you don't use those in everyday language, maybe it's good to have a little recap. Now, remember what this word means, so that way we can sing with understanding, because that is like the biggest thing that we do. We sing with understanding. Even things like marching to Zion or on Jordan's stormy banks, like those are really good thoughts, but why are we singing them? No, why? It's because we're marching to Zion, like literally, but no, it's like a spiritual thing. And how do those words fit with what we are trying to do? What are we doing with it? Now, okay, I said all that, but I'm going to reemphasize: don't make it long. Don't preach a sermon, and like I just did. You don't have to just overly explain things. Like, it's good to just get an overall mindset of what's going on. And that's an appropriate time to talk about the format. If there's anything different with the format, we're just going to do verses 1, 3, and 5, or whatever. That's the time to talk about that and be clear about those instructions too. Okay, anything about that part, the introduction to the songs? If something comes up and you want to mention it later, we'll have that question answered. But you also set the tone and tempo of each song. Here's what I would suggest. If you do like the whole, you have a note playing, some people use pitch pipes, actually. I don't see that a whole lot anymore. Some people might use a tuning fork, or more commonly, your phone, the tone on your phone. And you find the starting note, find the do note, and then move. At least just get to the starting note of the soprano line, because that is going to be like the line you're probably going to be leading, the one that you're going to be singing. You don't have to get fancy with it. You don't have to go all over the place. But at least do that so people can know where they're starting at. Give a clear beat pattern. There we go. There's that the whole thing there. Overemphasize any dynamic or tempo changes. Because if you really want, okay, this part is really loud, but this part is really quiet. Like, really make a difference and make sure, even if you aren't doing hand motions, if you're loud and then you're soft, like you can do something to indicate that we're pulling it back a little bit, or tempo, whatever it is. Overemphasize those. Those can be important in the way that we think about the words of the song, and so like it's important to consider that some. Tendencies of the group. Watch out for these. These are some common things that happen. When we get softer, the tendency, do you know what the tendency is when we're softer? Slow down. Okay, well, softer, we do get quieter. Thank you, Kyle. We do slow down. So, when things are softer, typically people slow down. Slow doesn't mean soft. Soft doesn't mean slow, but that's what happens. Be aware of that. People speed up when they're louder and tend to go faster. A lot of times, if there's like a really long note, something's held out for more than like a half note, or if there's a rest, people tend to rush through those and try to get to the next note quicker than is really, that they're supposed to. And there's a tendency to slow down on quarter notes. On just if there's like a driving quarter note thing, I'm this pressing on the upward way. That song, Higher Ground. There we go. Yeah, that the like bass and tenor line that's just like constant throughout. That has a tendency just it's strong and powerful, but then it slows down. Like, just be aware that is a thing that can happen. Any other like things that you mentioned? Yeah. It is, yeah.
Sounds like very good. But you visit around, you're going to notice whatever speed the song leader starts out at typically gets brought down by the AI. Your job as a song
It is.
So if you allow a congregation to do what they want to do, they're going to bring you so far down that the song is lower than molasses.
It is. And that's a good point, because recognizing the tendencies of what happens, realize we are in a position, leading singing, to try to do something about that. Now, there's some balance to that, obviously, because you don't want to be fighting the congregation the whole time, because that could be distracting. And if there's a constant, they're here, and you're just trying to there's some balance there. Some advice for that. So what do we do about that? How do we handle that? Well, one thing is you need to try and push. If you're doing hand motions, and if you're decently loud enough, you can hopefully help the group stay up where they want to be. You don't want to be fighting all the way through a verse, all the way through the chorus. Sometimes it's good at the beginning of the chorus or the beginning of the next verse. That's when you try to push forward again. Those sorts of things. It's sort of like a course correct type thing that can help. Roger? That is true. I love that. Amen. We do need to get together and sing more. I think that's absolutely true.
Jason, you could also, at the start of the song, announce to the congregation, we have a tendency to slow down in this spot. Let's not do that. Let's push on through it.
True.
And recognize that sometimes it's better to just stop. Song is there's an obvious disconnect between the leader and the congregation, and just to pause, not berate, not fuss at the congregation, but just stop and say, hey, let's start that over. Let's try to keep the speed up, or let's remember this is sung with emotion. Let's sing it slowly.
Yeah, we're supposed to be excited about going to heaven, not sad that we have to get there. And that's true. And that leads me to like the final idea of that little section. When it comes to, you're going to make a mistake. There's going to be things that happen. What you do with that, just straight, the first response you should have to when you make a mistake, when you, especially you, do something. I didn't mean to point to some. I think I pointed at Michael. But when you do something wrong, don't acknowledge it. Don't berate yourself. Don't say, well, guys, that was totally me. Did you see that? That was awful. Or just try to let it go and keep going. Because everybody makes mistakes. You're going to start the wrong verse. You're going to sing the wrong thing in the wrong spot. You're going to be too high in one place. You're going to miss a note, whatever. That's going to happen. But it's not about you. Remember that? It's really not. And so you just go on. Just don't acknowledge that and move forward, because we want people to focus on the Lord. And not how we do. It's not a performance thing, it's a service. And we don't want to attract unnecessary attention to ourselves in any way. We want to be separate from that. But there are times where we do need to stop and start over. But if you make a mistake in the middle of a verse, don't just hound on that. We're focused on worshiping the Lord. All right. Anything else on those points? Yeah. I was waiting for it. Yeah. That's a good point. That's good to know. I think that's helpful, because the tendency of most groups are, and no matter who's leading, they're going to try to at least slow down. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Right. That is a good point.
And to what we tried earlier with Michael, if the people up here you might be afraid they're going to hear me too loud, but you step away from that microphone, the people in the very back. And at the closing song, a lot of times I'm standing back there, and even those of you that sing loudly, I'm trying to hear you over top of a whole congregation singing. So you might go, I've got a loud voice, but you're not louder than 150 other people singing together.
That's true.
So what happens is when I can't hear you, I have to listen to the people around me, and now they're leading me, and when that happens, it's the telephone game. It starts changing what the input that we're receiving.
That's a good point. Acoustics and all that plays a big major role. I'll amend what I said earlier and say, in general, stay at the mic. I think that's a better thing to do. I appreciate that. I think that is helpful. I want to talk about the last few points, and then we'll have some more questions and see if you have anything to say. But new songs, is it appropriate to have new songs? Should we do new songs? Is that a thing that we should even care about? Why should we do it? There's a couple of quotes. Psalm 96, verse 1, and Psalm 98, verse 1, both open up by saying, sing to the Lord a new song. Revelation 4, what we had alluded to before, talks about singing a new song. And that concept is in a few different places. First of all, every song is a new song at some point. But I think it can be helpful to try and find new words to express our praise to the Lord. And we're trying to find new ways to do that. And some words, some phrases just resonate differently with people. And maybe something sticks out to you that you never thought about, and it just helps you in a way that you didn't expect. Now, I will immediately caveat this by saying, well, okay, should we do all new songs then? Absolutely not. I think we need some balance there, and it should be. This is personal Jason Bridgeman opinion. I think it should be more so songs that we're familiar with. Far outweigh how many new songs are introduced in a given time. Because, again, we don't want to be distracting, and it does take a little bit of extra brain power and everything to get into that new frame of mind. We're not trying to make worship more attractive to people. We're not trying to get rid of old songs or just change for the sake of change. We're not just trying to introduce things because I really like the tune or it sounds really good. That should not be why you pick out songs in general. So like older songs included. So that's not the mindset. If you're going to lead a new song, here's some things that you might want to consider. Make sure that you have read the song and understand what it's saying. It wouldn't be a bad idea. Read the whole song before we start, so we know where we're going. If it's appropriate, if it works out, it's not a bad idea, especially for some songs, to just say we're going to sing the first verse unison on the soprano line. We're all going to sing the lead part, and we're going to sing it a little slower. That way, the people who are a little bit better at sight reading aren't in their different parts. We're all singing that, so we all have that melody in mind. Then we can start back over at the beginning of verse 1, all the parts, whatever. So that way, it helps people become more comfortable with that song. Again, don't do that all the time. And I'm saying that to you like it's y'all it's me. I know. But that's something that you can introduce some things, but if that's what you're going to do it wisely.
That's something that Roger brought up that can be immensely helpful for that is getting together and singing more. I mean, if this is truly a sacrifice to God, would we, go back to the Old Testament, would we show up and go, I've got this brand new piece of equipment to prepare this sacrifice. I've never used it before. We're just going to kind of wing it. I agree with your point. We have to learn these new songs, and there's a place for them. And I think we can even acceptably find a way to learn them during a worship service. But if we would take those opportunities that we have, if we make them more available to get together and say, hey, look, we've got a song coming up. We did that at the 4th of July. There's a song that we want to sing here more often. Let's break those out and take some time to try to learn those a little bit. That can benefit in those areas.
And that's really helpful.
Talking about time and place and distraction. I would like to get some of the elders' feedback and other people. Time and place for that introduction. Should that be the invitation song for a new song?
Ooh, good question. I would say not. Yeah.
So sometimes I think, like when I ask Luke, you know this song? And he says, I can learn it. And then when we get here Sunday, I find out I've asked Luke to lead a song that he doesn't know very good, and nobody else here had ever heard. And I wasn't aware of that until right before services began. I think like those things happen, but and just because you brought that up, I wanted to bring up something else. We are asking people to make a life-altering decision. They don't need to be trying to go, do I go up or down here? And they also need to have time to make that decision. So not only should it not be a new song, but it should be a song with more than one verse. Something that gives them enough time to, what I would love is for us, let's stand and sing and just have a flock of people just charging the front. But usually people have to think about this and really weigh out the decision I'm making.
It is.
And it's not a good time to even read a new song before singing. You don't want to take away from the invitation that was recently extended.
Right.
The emotions that are tied to that. You don't want to stop all that and say, hey, we'll sing this song. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Taking away from the momentum.
Amen. Elders have any input on that?
And I think new songs are more appropriate introduced to the congregation when we are having our fifth Wednesday night.
Oh, yeah, and we're going to talk about the fifth Sunday night singings as well. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking when we came here from Lakeside, we also forget that not every congregation is familiar with the same song. For the last 5 years with that congregation.
True.
So it's easy to come in here and like, spread the tidings around. I leave that thinking I've known that for my whole life. I expect everybody else knows this too. That's not always the case.
Right.
So it may be good to ask an elder or a member of the congregation who's been there a long time. Hey, have we sung this song? It takes 2 seconds to ask that question. It's a really good question to ask.
That is a good point. Yeah, so I remember that I fought that battle when I first came here because I didn't know what people were familiar with, and so I would always run it by someone else. So that's a good thing. Wednesday night singings, you are the one responsible for starting service after Bible class. So 7:50, that's about when that needs to happen. So make sure you're prepared, ready, and realize that's you. That no one else is coming before you to do that. And going back to the invitation song thing, don't forget to make people aware of the invitation song, because it's just you sing one song and that's it. Then there's the invitation, then you do your song. So make sure to mention that and don't forget to do that. Other singing opportunities. The fifth Sunday, we do have that singing opportunity, and it's a great time to get everyone involved. Can be a time for new songs, although sometimes we have a very specific theme that we're trying to accomplish, and I think that's great. I think it's good to have a theme because what this helps to do is when we are when people are leading songs for the fifth Sunday, this is a time, I don't think that you have to introduce every single song because they're all according to that theme, that topic. Now, major exceptions are new songs and songs with some of that language that we might not be as comfortable with. Some of the, I don't want to call it outdated words, but some of the language that was more in general usage in the 1800s. So those are good times to have that, and that's similar to other special singing as well. Baptisms? Oh, sorry, go ahead. My bad.
I've heard the opposite. Some people won't lead songs because of theme. By that, for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I've heard that comment before, so maybe every now and again. Let's just hear what you want to sing. A new song, or maybe it's a new song Sunday or whatever.
That's not a bad idea either. Because we do want to make people feel comfortable with being able to present those. So that's true. As far as that last point, baptisms, there is a PowerPoint that is already, it's pre-made. And it says baptism or baptism songs or something. And at least a few people know how to access that. If you regularly access that computer and don't know where that's at, you might want to check on that just to make sure we have multiple people who are aware. If you're not comfortable with that, Michael Ray he's okay with doing that, I hear. But it's always good to have some songs prepared in the event of a baptism because that's what we're hoping for. And that would be really great. And so there's some of that lag time in between people getting ready for that and when that actually happens, and then afterward. So there's times there. If you're at a place that doesn't have that, and you're the one leading singing, there's always that topical index in the back of your songbooks. Look for things like redemption, salvation, praise. Any of those concepts I think would be appropriate for that situation. Or just have a few that you've written down that you know you could go to every time. Yeah.
Related to that, and I would really like the elders' thoughts on this as well. Sometimes people come forward to talk about baptism or just to confess things that are going on. And I know there's a tradition here of the invitation song is over and they're still up here talking. Let's start another song. A lot of times they're still up there talking, at least with me personally, because I haven't heard a word they said during the invitation song because they're emotional, they're sad, or they're nervous, they're getting ready to make this big decision, they're talking quietly, or their voice is broken, and I don't hear great already. So I'm trying to sit as close as I can and listen to them, and then when it breaks and I can hear them, when the song leader starts up another song, it's hard for me to really figure out exactly what we're doing here, what's listen to them talk. So I'd love to know your all's thoughts on that, about kind of like with class, sometimes just be uncomfortable and pray and be quiet. And like you said, this is the purpose we came here for. You gotta hear them. What would your all's thoughts be on that? Do we start another song?
My thought was we would start a song because of the quietness and uncomfortableness. But I hear what you're saying, so maybe we sing. But can you sing a song with a much lower? Everybody knows we're going to sing this really long.
Stay tuned.
There's a boatload of tradition baked into all that.
Yeah.
That it can all be re-examined.
It's true.
It's the reason that conversation's got to happen on that first view. Anyway,
Right.
That's all tradition. It's not worthy to be examined.
A lot of thoughts out here, guys. I love this. It's a good time to discuss this. I don't know. I hope that something out of this has been helpful. honestly thought this was going to be about 15 to 20 minutes worth of things. Are there any other things? Yeah, Thomas. Right. Mm-hmm. It's really helpful. Yeah, I think that it is good to help keep things moving along. I have a little checklist thing. This is just some thoughts. You don't have to do this, but it might be helpful. I'm going to ask these four guys right here, yes, you all. If you will take these and divide them up and pass them on to everybody. Could you all do that? That'd be awesome. Any other thoughts, questions, things that you want to discuss about song leading? Okay, that reminds me. Okay, this is a side note, and this is about things in worship in general. And I meant to make this comment when Michael was speaking about some of that. But how do we deal with people who after services tell us that we did a good job? Because I think that you'll have this experience that almost no matter what job you do, especially if you're a young man, that after you get done, after services, every old lady in the building is going to come and tell you how great you did. And that's great. I think that's awesome. You need to hear that. You need to hear you did a great job, and you need to have some encouragement. Don't let that be the thing that you are focused on. And don't let that be the thing that drives you to do it again. It's like, I want to do that again because of what all those people tell me. That is putting the focus in the wrong spot. So, that's something else. And that can happen with singing, especially, yeah, just in general, don't focus on that.
So, and I was going to bring this up here in Brad's talk, but I used to long be in the habit, someone said, great job after sermon, I would just respond, to God be the glory. And until a lady came up to me one day, she said, really, really appreciate your sermon. I said, well, to God be the glory. And she stopped and said, I know that. She said, okay. Are we supposed to speak with kindness? Yeah, she said, I'm trying to do that. And anytime I say that to a preacher and they act like I shouldn't offer that to them, it makes me feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I think there is a balance of making sure that our heart is in the right place, but also seeing that some of these people are saying that just because they believe it, but also because they want to serve you now in some way. You've served us, and we'd like to serve you with affirmation. We'd like to serve you with, minister encouragement to you. You do this again.
That's some good thoughts there. There's some discernment, what we need to do with that, for sure. Humility is key. Any other thoughts, anything? Anything else comes up? I'll try to assist with helping. But that's all I have. We'll go to the next thing, I suppose.